Welcome everyone to this second part of the video, rounding decimal numbers. Our lesson objective, students will be able to round decimal numbers to the nearest tenths and hundredths. So the first thing we need to do is we need to look into rounding decimals, rules for rounding decimals. So rules for rounding decimals, the first thing you need to do, underline the digit to be rounded. You need to underline the digits to be rounded. Second step is look at the digit to the right of the place value being rounded. Fourth one, you need to check if the digit is 4 or less, the underlined digit remains the same or 0. Remains the same. If the digit is 5 or more, add 1 to the underlined digit. So can we go and see these things practically? So my first example is going to be round to the nearest tenth. So I have this number 40.079. Our first underline the digit to be rounded. So because we want to round to the nearest tenths, the tenth value is at after the decimal point. So you underline the digit to be rounded. That is what our first step is saying. Underline the digit to be rounded. So my digit to be rounded is 0. To the nearest tenth is 0. So I'll mark it my digit to be rounded. So this is where my digit to be rounded. Then I underline the digit to be rounded is 7. Then I ask myself a question. I follow the rule here. If the digit is 4 or less, the underlined digit remains the same. Here my underlined digit is 7. Is it less than 4, less or more? We find it is more. And what does the rule says? If it is more, if the digit is 5 or more, add 1 to the underlined digit. Ours is circled now. So my digit is here, tenth. So if here is more, it's more than 5. So I'm going to add 1 here. If I add 1, so my answer is going to be 4.1. And the rest of the numbers, you assume them to be, you add 0 or you just leave it like that. So you discard everything after the decimal point. After you've worked out, you don't need to come and write 9. No, 9 is left. Good. Let's check the second one. I have another one, round to the nearest tenth. Now, this is my units. It's ones, the whole unit. Tenth is 6. Tenth is 6. So I'm going to underline the digit to be rounded. I'm going to underline it. So I'm going to check the hundredths digit. So my hundredths digit is 1. So what do? I check 1. Is 1 less or more than 5? We realize 1 is less than 5. It is 4 or less. And our rule says if the digit is 4 or less, the underlined digits remain the same. Which one is our underlined digit? Our underlined digit is 6. So because 1 is less than 5, 4 or less, we leave them and our underlined digit remain the same. So our answer is going to be 1.6. And that makes our answer. We've rounded off this number 1.616. Nearest tenth is going to be 1.6. I hope you get that. Let's move to rounding off to the nearest hundredth. I got my number 7.573. I'm rounding off to the nearest hundredths. Where is the hundredths? Hundredths is 7. So I'm going to underline 7. Then I'm going to check the thousands digit, the digit after the underlined number. So my digit is 3. So I'm going to check 3. Is 3 more or less than 5? We realize 3 is less than 5. And the rule says if a number is less than 5, 4 or less, we leave the number and the number that was underlined remains the same. And another way is now 3 becomes 0. So our new answer is going to be 7.57 because 3 did not affect 7. We did not add. Good. Let's look at the next number. I'm still rounding up to the nearest. I'm rounding up to the nearest. Now, in this part, I want to round this number to nearest 10. There is 10, there is 10th, there is whole number, and 100th. So, round 24.772 to the nearest 10. To the nearest 10, I'm going to underline 2. I'm going to underline 2. Then, which number do I check? I check the units part, which is 4. So I'll check the units part, which is 4. So I ask myself, is 4 less or more than 5? 4 is less than 5. So what do I do? If a number is less than 5, 4 or less, we leave the number. We can write 0 after it. If you leave it, it's the same as writing 0. So my new number is going to be nearest 10 is going to be 20. Is going to be 20. So this number rounded off to the nearest 10 is going to be 20. Remember, the moment I've rounded, I don't write this other number. These numbers remain 0. Their name now turns to be 0. Let's continue. I have a number here, 10th. I want to round this number 24.772 to the nearest 10th. To the nearest 10th is here, 7/10. So I'll underline the number, which is 7. After underlining, I check the second number, which is 7. If I check the second number, which is 7, so I'll ask myself, is 7 more or less? Definitely, 7 is more. So I'll add 1 to here so that my answer becomes 24, but because I've added 1 here, 7 now becomes 8. So we have 24.78. Let's look at the next number again, the other number, hundreds. When I want to round off 24.77 to nearest hundreds, I'll underline this number. I'll underline this number. I'll underline this number. Sorry. I'll underline the next 7. So then I check this number here. So if I check 2, is 2 less or more? 2 is less. So everything after the number that I've underlined remains 0. So my new number is going to be 24.77. 24.77. Either we can put 0 or we leave it. Remember, from our previous decimal, we say 0 after the number, after the decimal point. Not in between, but after the numbers, the decimal numbers, it doesn't affect, it doesn't add value or decrease it. So my number is going to be 24.77. Now here is a catch. We're going to round off this number to the nearest whole number. Remember, tens or units are part of whole number. Tens, hundreds, thousands are decimal numbers. So what do we do? So in this case, I'm going to underline this 7 only. In this case, I'm going to underline this 7 because if it is units, I'm going to check the tenths. So is 7 more or less? Yes, 7 is more than 5. When a number is more than 5, the rule says you leave the number and add 1 to the next digit. Next digit after the decimal is 4. Before the decimal is 4. So that means 4 is going to change to be 5. So my new whole number is going to be 25. That makes our work easier. So that's it. So remember the rules. We've learned that. We've learned that. Remember this. In this lesson, we've learned that when you want to round decimal, the first thing you need to do, underline the digit to be rounded. 2. Look at the digit to the right of the place value being rounded. Check if the digit is 4 or less, the underlined digit remains the same, or if the digit is 5 or more, add 1 to the underlined digit. So I wish you well. Go and check the slides, try them out, underline then round off the numbers according to the instructions that are given. Thank you. Bye for now.